Hello, good afternoon everyone. Halo, selamat sore semuanya. Ini kayaknya udah semakin banyak yang joining the session. Kita tunggu jam 4 Teng, nanti kita akan mulai untuk introduction dan akan kita mulai ngobrolnya juga ya. Halo semuanya. Oh ya, salam kenal, aku Sylvia dari IDA. Halo, selamat sore semuanya. Welcome to sesi kita lagi-lagi bersama Indonesian Digital Association. Kali ini pembahasannya mengenai micropayments. Kita orang-orang Indonesia sudah siap belum sih ngelihat publisher, ngelihat konten, tapi akhirnya konten ini nih worth it untuk user bayar gitu. Sebenarnya orang-orang Indonesia tuh udah siap belum sih? Karena we believe that advertising is not the only option for revenue stream. Content monetization can also mean making sure your readers to pay for the content. Nah, Indonesian readers tuh sebenarnya udah ready belum sih? Kita tahu kalau di Southeast Asia, di beberapa negara di luar, kayaknya sudah cukup banyak dan sudah sangat umum gitu ya untuk bisa readers bisa membeli konten-konten kita. Nah, di sini ada beberapa speakers panelis yang kita sudah invite dari Indonesia juga ada, dari di luar dari Southeast Asia target audience juga ada. Dan kita juga ada yang ngebantuin dari micropayment system nih. Nanti kedepannya kita bisa tahu lebih banyak lagi mengenai payment system dan keinginan orang Indonesia untuk sudah siap nggak sih masuk dan akhirnya beli konten yang menurut mereka worth it untuk mereka beli gitu. Jadi kita sudah cukup banyak yang coming in dan join the session. Let's start and agendanya nanti akan lebih banyak untuk Q&A, sharing dari beberapa panelis kita, dan nanti ke depannya pasti of course dari teman-teman yang ikutan sesi ini sore ini juga boleh banget feel free untuk tanyakan apa aja yang pengen ditanyain atau misalkan yang kalian penasaran banget nih pengen tahu mengenai kedepannya konten tuh in the future kayak gimana sih Indonesia gitu. Please give a warm welcome to our panelists. We have Rama from Daily Social. Hi Rama, nice to have you here. Thank you for joining the session. We also have Joji from Diostreet Asia. Hi Joji. How are you? Hope things are going very well with Diostreet Asia and for you yourself too.
Yes.
And then last but not least, we have Dushan from FuSense. Very nice to have you here as well, joining the session. Hope we can start a very insightful discussion, and everyone in here can finally get something in return, and they can also apply it in their daily life as well. So please say hi, everyone. First of all, maybe coming first, we have Daily Social. We have Rama that maybe will share some one or two things about Daily Social. Maybe Rama can start your session.
All right. Selamat sore teman-teman semua. Thank you for having me dari Ida. Kebetulan aku di Ida juga, so I'm the CEO of Daily Social. But I'm also with Ida, so happy to support the team juga di sini. Thank you for having me, and thank you for FuSense for sponsoring this event, and Joji as well. Joji has been my mentor for the past year. He's running one of the role model for Daily Social, and when it comes to monetizing digital content, Diostreet Asia has been kind of a role model for our business model. Very, very inspiring as well. So thank you both of you guys for being here. So aku kayak campur-campur bahasa Indonesia, bahasa Inggris ala Jaksel gitu, nggak apa-apa ya, karena ada yang non bahasa Indonesia juga. So hari ini aku pengen sedikit ngobrolin soal monetizing digital content, dan ini mungkin aku pengen mulai sedikit, mungkin it's very important untuk tahu dari Daily Social sendiri background kita tuh seperti apa. So kita memang media yang udah lumayan lama juga sebenarnya, dan kita niche-nya memang very specific. Kita cuma ngomongin teknologi dan formatnya is very bervariasi, tapi the anchor jangkarnya itu selalu sama, yaitu society dengan teknologi. Visinya kita dari dulu itu we're very specific. Kita nggak akan jauh-jauh ngomongin yang lain, very niche. Jadi mungkin ini salah satu karakter yang membuat kita juga lebih mudah ketika kita memutuskan untuk monetizing our content. Dan dari sisi brand value sendiri, mungkin aku bisa cerita sedikit. Kita dari 2008 semenjak kita didirikan, kita selalu berinovasi. Jadi dari 2008 sampai sekarang, we've changed a lot. Kita selalu coba-coba hal yang baru, crazy things kadang-kadang gitu ya. But it's been fun, dan beberapa kegilaan-kegilaan yang kita lakukan berhasil, beberapa yang enggak, which is experimental. It's quite normal for us gitu ya. Dan tahun 2014 we made like any other media companies, kita actually make money from display advertising. Waktu itu kita ada kurang lebih ada 15 orang waktu itu, timnya masih quite small, dan kita waktu itu udah dapat beberapa kontrak, kontrak setahun dari brand ini, brand itu, segala macam, brand teknologi pasti nggak jauh-jauh. Cuman waktu itu memang kita coba introspeksi, is this the best way to deliver the message? So kita coba lihat sebenarnya when it comes to display advertising, everyone is talking about CTR. Jadi CTR industri di Indonesia itu, I'm not sure the numbers now, tapi even dulu itu nggak pernah nembus 1% aja kayaknya, udah luar biasa banget gitu kan gitu. Dan for us waktu itu memang kita angkanya udah masuk ke single digit our own CTR, but still we believe bahwa really cuma 1% dari orang yang klik, dari semua pembaca kita itu cuma 1% gitu kan. That's an incredibly small number, dan we feel like that's not the best way to deliver the objective. Dan we as a media company percaya bahwa the value of a media company when it comes to advertising and when it comes to monetization adalah we want to deliver and connect brand messaging dari si advertiser ke pembacanya daily social, to our readers. And honestly, dengan angka CTR yang segitu kecilnya, we don't think that that's the best way to to achieve that objective. Of course, ada isu-isu lain soal intrusiveness, distracting, it ruins the whole the whole UI UX experience. I mean, I don't know if you guys know, tapi harga web designer UI UX experience today itu like really expensive, mahal banget harganya, gajinya, and then itu semua dirusak sama banner yang tiba-tiba out of place dan segala macam. Dan mungkin beberapa industri norm juga yang sekarang, companies kayak Firefox, kayak Opera itu udah mulai bahkan memfasilitasi dengan built-in ad blocker. Artinya apa? Mereka memang udah memulai kayak semacam campaign memang untuk to support user experience, user convenience, user protection juga gitu. So banner blindness is really is something yang udah normal banget di industri digital kita gitu ya. Dan honestly, kalau kita ngelihat 0 point something percent people yang actually click the ads, is mostly people who wants to click the X and then accidentally click, opens up the iklan kan, the ads gitu. Jadi we don't think that's the best way untuk bisa deliver the objective of our advertisers. So kenapa kita akhirnya memilih premium content? Ada beberapa hal. Mungkin teman-teman yang dari tim marketing, tim bisnis sama tim editorial, in a media company, the business guys and the editorial guys are usually, like head to head, we need to make more money, but the editorial team is like, oh yeah, but we want to, make high quality content. There's always this clash of, agenda, which is, giving a lot of CEOs a headache juga pastinya. So, but being able to sell premium content actually aligns both department. Jadi dua-duanya punya agenda yang sama, high quality article, high quality content, tapi juga making money. Dan yang lebih keren lagi, from why we're very excited to pursue this premium content specifically di digital ya, because now every business and editorial decision making can be data driven. Sebelumnya enggak. Sebelumnya is we look before all of this, we look at what other people are talking about, our competitors and other media companies. Oh, they're talking about this, and then we jump in and join the conversation. Now we don't have to. We simply look at the data that we have. Oh, our readers ternyata they like this type of content, they like this type of formats, for example, the preferable length of an article. Now we know, right? So all these different data yang now we have is very helpful when it comes to decision making, both editorial and business decision juga. Sama one thing yang we've been trying since last year juga, effectively itu November, actually kita mulai implement a pay-per-view model. Indonesia is relatively new lah with paying for content ya. Mungkin sekarang udah ada companies kayak Netflix, kayak Spotify gitu yang udah mulai berbayar ya. Tapi when it comes to news, it's very it's very new. It's a weird concept for most Indonesians, right? So we didn't want to introduce the subscription model early on. Instead, we want to introduce with a smaller pay-per-view model, which was more preferable. We feel like it's more preferable towards Indonesian readership. So we work with FewSense. Dushan and his team has been, very helpful for us. We've been implementing this since last year. So now we have three models essentially. One is the pay-per-view using FewSense, but on top of that, we also have the monthly and annual subscription model similar to Deal Street Asia. So we cover all range of market. People who are more casual readers, they would choose the pay-per-view model, and those who are more committed pays the monthly and annual subscription. And the result has been staggering for us. Our monthly recurring revenue has been increasing like crazy since last year. We're very happy with the result. Even our annual membership is also increasing quite fast, and this is something that surprising for us, because our content is, I would probably say, 80% Indonesian, in Bahasa Indonesia. We have a little bit of English type of content, but 100% of our membership, no, not, I don't think it's 100%, probably like 95, 98% of our membership is actually Indonesian. They could be, living abroad or whatever, but they are Indonesian, which is, for us, it's amazing. And, we're very happy with the result. And this covers all the subscription model and the pay-per-view model as well. And when we started doing this, kita sempat takut, oh nanti trafficnya turun, our subscriber jumlahnya turun, because we do have free content, but you have to register. It's free to read, but you have to register type of content, right? Oh, so those numbers should be down, blah blah blah. But actually, that's not the case. The number keep increasing. This is the growth number actually. So it's not cumulatively. It's actually on a week-to-week basis. It keeps growing quite fast, and we're very happy with the result. We were preparing for some blowbacks, some complaints, blah blah blah, which we do have a few complaints, but they're not paying us, so I don't really listen to their complaints. I only listen to complaints from people who are actually paying for us. So again, for us, it's easier to make that type of decision. And our conversion rate so far is 14% of our readership who view a paid article convert into a paying member. And on a monthly basis, at least for the past 3 months, has been growing 25%, which I think so far is incredible. When it comes to pay-per-view model, our conversion rate is actually quite high, which is 12%. So 20% of all the people who reads the limited view of a pay-per-view article, they actually convert into paying for pay-per-view using FewSense, which again, we're very happy to learn about this type of model, because I think if we decided to do the subscription model first, it would be, I think there's going to be a little bit more resistance from Indonesian consumer. So a few things that we learned, for now at least. Bank transfer and GoPay is the main main channel for paying. In Indonesia, early when we started this product, we kind of assumed that the people who were paying will be using credit card, but we assume that people who reach daily social is quite high class, so they would own a credit card. But that's not necessarily the case for now, and we're trying to still try to do more promotions and all that stuff. And even though the conversion rate and success rate for us is quite okay, but we think we can improve that, and we do find a few UX problems from our side, because for Indonesian media companies, we really don't have any example on how to do UX UI for a paid content. So we look a lot from companies like Deal Street Asia, Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and all that stuff. So we're still adapting with the UI UX things. And I think the most important thing that I think kind of support our decision in to adopting this type of business model is because our journalists is we, from day one when we recruit them since a long time ago, we were never about traffic. We were always about high quality content, and we implement high standard analytical skills when we recruit our writers. But most importantly, they have to understand and they have to be passionate about the technology industry. And I think this is probably the one of the key things that makes us quite successful in implementing this type of business model of monetizing content, with paying content. I think that's all from me dari saya. Thank you, and look forward to discuss with you guys furthermore. Thank you.
Thank you Rama for sharing. Tanya-tanya dikit dong, Mak.
Sure.
Perjalanannya gitu ya. Perjalanannya gitu dari pertama kali dari display advertising gitu ya, and then you moved into content monetization gitu. How struggle-nya tuh kayak gimana sih, Mak? Boleh nggak di-share ke teman-teman di sini? Atau ada nggak struggle-nya?
Ada lah pastilah. I think dulu memang ini sih convincing the stakeholder, that's one thing ya. Shareholders juga gue mesti update bahwa kita dapat duit dari advertising, yes, tapi I think we're gonna ditch it next year gitu kan. Mereka most of them kayak, why? You're making money on this, right? And then I try to explain, and luckily they're very progressive, they're very supportive juga gitu, and they really believe in the team's capability of executing this. So we're very happy to be able to get the support dari mereka. Tapi dari sisi implementasi teknologi itu pun juga sebenarnya nggak terlalu banyak masalah sih, to be very honest with you, because if you work with FewSense, we've been working with them juga quite simple lah, very very easy. They really support us on where our needs segala macam, very integration juga very very easy. And even if we implement the monthly subscription and annual subscription juga, it's very easy. You can contact all the payment gateways. They would help you. So technology part is I think is quite easy lah ya. I think the biggest challenge is to educate the audience bahwa ini artikel berharga sekali loh, gitu loh, dan you cannot get this di tempat lain. You can only get this type of content di kita, and that requires I think a long investment juga sih. And I think dari sisi kita dari social memang sejak awal, dari awal banget gitu kita nggak pernah ngomongin yang soal clickbait, for example, right? We never did that. Dari awal kita nggak pernah ngomongin clickbaits, and we were always like quality content, bener-bener yang we really focus on content and never about traffic. And I think that effort, that process kind of translated quite nicely ke pembacanya kita. Jadi ketika kita switch ke berbayar, they already understand bahwa ini bukan media ecek-ecek gitu loh. Dan we also have we're very lucky to be able to get that niche, di mana kalau ngomongin startup, ngomongin innovation itu Daily Social kayaknya nggak ada lawannya di Indonesia gitu kan. Jadi ketika mereka expect konten itu ada online, konten itu ada hanya di Daily Social, dan mereka percaya karena so far we've been quote unquote investing those type of high quality content for free. Now they have to pay for them. It's okay. I've been enjoying this type of content for free for the past 2 years, 3 years. Now I have to pay a small amount of money. It's okay. Some of them actually langganan yang tahunan juga kan, which shows us, I always tell my team, sehari ada berapa nih yang langganan tahunan gitu kan. Ini artinya basically their trust ke kita itu udah selevel ini gitu loh. Mereka bayar lumayan mahal soalnya. Gitu sih.
Thank you for sharing, Rama. Di hold dulu, nanti kita sharingnya. Tahan dulu, tahan. Okay, let's move on to Dushan. Maybe you want to share a little bit about FewSense? Feel free to share.
Sure. Thanks, Sylvia. And thanks, everyone, for having me. Thanks to the IDA. Just a quick background on myself. So I am a co-founder with FewSense. And prior to FewSense, I was working with Google for 13 years in the partnership business. So I worked very closely with publishers across Southeast Asia and India, helping them monetize through the Google ad stack, as well as a little bit on the subscription side. So I'm very familiar with the challenges that publishers such as all of you face in terms of monetization. And that's why micropayments as an alternative solution was super attractive for me. And that's why, along with my co-founders, we started FewSense. What I'll do is I'll talk a little bit about micropayments and the background and where we think it works, rather than try and sell FewSense to you. So it's more about micropayments as a new source, and why we think it's the right time that it'll work, especially for a market like Indonesia. So let me just share my screen. 1 second. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay, great. So to start off with, I think most of you will be familiar with this, right? So for any publisher, there are basically two models that publishers have used to make money, right? One is ads and the other is subscription. Now, the great thing about ads has been that it covers all of your users, whether they're in your domestic market, whether they're international. You can actually monetize all your users. The not so great thing about ads is that the revenue per user or the RPM is actually quite low. Uh, so a lot of publishers start looking at subscriptions as the automatic alternative way of making money. And the great thing about subscriptions is once a user signs on, they actually pay quite a lot. So revenue per user of people who are subscribers is high. But again, the challenge with subscription is that a very small percentage of users actually end up being subscribers. This is something everyone knows, right? Now, if you take this further over time, and you talk about ads, the RPM or the yields actually have been declining for a few years now, and COVID has actually made that decline go even faster. On top of that, third-party cookies, and I believe IDA had a session about this very recently, is further challenging ads and the RPMs you can get. So this has resulted in a lot of publishers thinking very hard about other forms of revenue that can add on top of advertising. Now, if you look at subscription, as I already said, it's a limited market. Very few percent of people actually end up subscribing. But what we've observed so far that it's largely a winner takes all market. So by that I mean that there are a few top publishers who end up taking most of the subscribers. So as an example, we've all heard New York Times being talked about as a global success story, and it is in terms of digital subscribers. But while New York Times has close to 7 million digital subscribers, as you go down to the third, fourth, or fifth player in the news market in the US, suddenly you see the number of subscribers go down by a big number. So this quote I found very interesting from the Financial Times, which said that basically that if you add Los Angeles Times, Boston Globe, and the 100 newspapers of Gannett, which is one of the largest print companies in the US, New York Times still has 4 times the digital subscribers, right? So what this means is that very quickly, once you're not the top few in your specific market, your number of subscribers actually goes down a lot. Secondly, once you get those subscribers, the churn rate is actually quite high. So you spend a lot of money, a lot of effort acquiring users, but there's a huge churn problem, which actually means that you have to spend even more resources to get new subscribers. So there's obviously a big gap. Sorry, 1 second. Yeah, so there's a big gap, monetization gap in terms of revenue per user between subscription and ads. And what we did was we looked at this space further and we said, hey, what kind of users are there who could potentially fill this gap? And what we found out is that roughly 50%, and I think in Indonesia, probably 60% or 70% of users will just never pay for any digital content online. That's just how it is. It's not necessarily about being able to afford it. It's just they like free things. They don't understand why they should pay for any content. But there's still a very large percent of users, anywhere from 30 to 50%, who understand that they need to pay something for good content, right? But subscription may not be the right answer for them. So they're still looking for the right model for them to get their value for money, right? And this is the space where we feel micropayments could address and could take advantage of. Now, let's very quickly just be on the same page of what micropayments are. So micropayments allow publishers the chance to charge small amounts of money or a few cents for each piece of content, right? So whether it is text content or whether it's audio, video, or downloadable files or any other form of digital content, micropayments allows you to charge a few cents, collect that money from your users. So it effectively unbundles your content from a subscription style where it's a kind of all-you-can-eat style to individual pieces of content. So what we did was we looked at that green box of willing to pay users, and we actually ran a survey across 8 different markets, including some developed markets and developing markets, as well as Indonesia. And what we found was across the board, when we asked people, are you willing to pay small amounts of money? And we said roughly around 30 US cents to access good content. And overwhelmingly, 86% of people across countries on average said that they are willing to pay. And this also cut across different age groups. So whether you are young or old, by and large, people said, yes, they are willing to pay small amounts of money. So that was very encouraging for us. Second, we delve a little deeper and we asked, okay, what kind of content would you be willing to pay for? Is it any kind of content or is it specific? And we quickly found out that it was specific types of content that people are willing to pay for more. So globally, cooking for some reason, and by the way, this is across males and females, cooking was the number one content genre that people wanted to pay for. But beyond that, areas like health, fitness, travel, sports, local news, finance, these were all areas that users said they're willing to pay for. Specifically in Indonesia, roughly it followed the same trend. The only difference being they somehow, Indonesians, you seem to love gadgets a lot, and I think especially on the male side. So that was also a specific area that people said they're willing to pay. And then lastly, we also looked at the forms of payment. So Rama had mentioned GoPay and bank transfers are the most popular forms that in his experience. So we saw that even in developed markets, where we assume that cards would be overwhelmingly the majority of the way people prefer to pay, we saw that only 44% of people like paying by cards, even in developed markets. And of course, in developing markets like Indonesia, India, Philippines, the majority of people like either banking or wallets such as GoPay or OVO or any of the local forms. So these were some of the things that kind of informed us on micropayments. Now, the other part of another question that we get a lot from people are, micropayments has been tried in the past. It's not worked. Why now? Why do you think this is the right time? So if you actually look at it from two lenses, right? One from a publisher side and one from a user side, we actually feel that the timing is actually perfect. So we've already mentioned that digital ad yields are declining. So from a publisher standpoint, there's more urgency to find different forms of revenue. The second is we're seeing more and more, including with publishers in Indonesia, that the focus is back on the quality of content rather than maximizing page views. So I think over the last 3, 4, 5 years, because ads has been the main form of revenue, everyone was maximizing page views. But now people seem to be pivoting back to not necessarily maximizing page views, but also looking at the quality of the content. And Rama also mentioned that as a strategy for Daily Social. The third piece, as I mentioned earlier, was around subscription churn. So even those that have subscriptions are seeing huge amounts of churn. And there's this quote from Piano, which is a subscription software as a service provider. They say that the subscription churn is roughly around 18% per month as of March 2020. So think about this. If you have 100 subscribers and you don't do anything, roughly in about 6 months, you'll be back to 0 subscribers, right? So it's a very tough game, subscription, especially to keep your subscribers. Second, on the user side, you look at subscription fatigue. So from a user perspective, globally, the average number of news subscriptions per person of people who pay for news content is 1. That means, on average, if I have signed up for 1 news subscription, I'm very unlikely to sign for a second subscription, right? So this brings me back to the point of, hey, if I've subscribed to New York Times, I'm very unlikely to subscribe to anybody else. So there's and more users are seeing subscription paywalls come up everywhere. So they're getting tired of that and they're not willing to subscribe to more than 1. second, on the user side, is that we all know this fragmentation of content is increasing. There's more and more sources of content. There's less and less loyalty of users to specific brands. In fact, globally, what we learned from the Reuters Digital News Report is that only about 28% of users, news users, start their journey with a specific website or app. So that means that 72% of users actually consume news either casually, referred to social networking or search or some other form. So content fragmentation is a big area, and this actually is something that micropayments can help address. And then lastly, from a digital payments perspective, this is something we all know. There's a huge user base of digital payment users, and there's an increasing realization that users need to pay for premium content in order to access it. In fact, in Indonesia, interesting to learn as I was doing research, was that roughly in 2021, an average user will spend $30 a month in Indonesia, and most of it is on e-commerce. But imagine if someone's spending $30, most of it on e-commerce, how much money do they actually have to spend on digital content, right? So it's a very limited market, and that's why maybe subscriptions may not be the best. If you have a $5, $10 a month subscription, that's a pretty high percentage of that $30. Now, as you look at micropayments, it's important to understand the different players. So I won't go too deep into this, but think of this as the left side of this graph talks about aggregators. So these are people who aggregate content from different content owners and publishers. Now, the great thing about these types of players is very good for the user. They go to one spot and they're able to access content from multiple places. This could be an app store, it could be YouTube, it could be Spotify, right? But the issue with this is that as a content owner, you have very little transparency or control over what's happening. So for example, you don't know who the users are. You only pretty much get a check at the end of the month of the consumption. You don't own the user yourself, right? So there's a lot of, while it's great for user convenience, the control from the creator or publisher standpoint is actually quite low. On the right side are service providers. So these are providers that sit on top of publishers, whether they're subscription or micropayments. These are really good for publisher control because publishers can decide when to show them, what pricing to do, they can customize it. So it's really good from a publisher control standpoint. But if you look at the bottom right, which is the subscription players or the ads players, the issue there is that from a user standpoint, it's not the best. So for subscription, I need to subscribe to a new account every time I go to a new publisher, right? Or from an ads point, Rama already mentioned, it gets cluttered. You're now developing blindness to it. So it's not the best user experience, which is why on the top right, which is where FewSense and some others play, you have both the publisher control as well as user convenience because this sits across multiple publishers. You have one login across publishers. Now, a very quick thing to realize in micropayments is it's not easy to do from a fintech perspective. So if you charge 20 cents today as a publisher, let's say you tie up with PayPal or Stripe, right? If you charge 20 cents, there's a fixed fee that all these payment gateways have. And so let's say the fixed fee is roughly around 30 cents. So automatically your 20-cent transaction is not profitable. But in micro payments, we create a wallet. And with a wallet, there's no fixed fee and therefore it becomes profitable. So it's important to understand from a micro payments perspective, you have to have a wallet for this to make profitable sense. Now, again, answering that question of why haven't micro payments worked in the past? So one was timing that I mentioned earlier, but beyond timing, there are several areas that you need to solve in terms of your solution so that you can make micropayments successful. And the four pieces are, one is user convenience. So it needs to be super fast. It needs to be one login across publishers so that the user doesn't have to keep signing up everywhere. And it needs to be in local currency. So most publishers have global audience, right? You as an Indonesian publishers may have the majority of your users in Indonesia, but you'll definitely have users outside Indonesia as well. And they'll want to see the pricing in their own currency, and they'll want to pay in their own methods, right? So if in Indonesia, people like using GoPay, in Singapore, people may like using GrabPay or PayNow, right? And you need to be able to give those those options to them. Second is publisher control. So immediately micropayments, paying per article, for example, you need a very sophisticated digital content rights management system, right? Which specific content is unlocked by which user, they should be able to access it on desktop, on mobile, etc. So all those rights need to be managed. Pricing placement need to be in the control of the publisher, including geofencing. So for example, if I'm a publisher and I have enough subscribers in the US, but I don't have any subscribers in Indonesia, I may want to only allow micropayments in Indonesia and not allow it in the US, right? So deciding which markets I want to use micropayments is also an important piece. Third piece I already mentioned was fintech, which is the ability to have a wallet. It's also how do you transfer small amounts of money across different, across borders and manage the regulations as well. And the last is analytics, which is actually quite important. So this is understanding what content is being unlocked by which user at what price. It helps you define what content to put behind the paywall, as well as what price to charge it. So all of these put together, while there are individual players that you can see on the right side, nobody's looked at it together in a comprehensive way, specifically for the media industry. And actually, this is what FewCents is trying to do. Now, there are different types of different stages of publishers as they go in their monetization and subscription journey. I'll quickly go over this. So one, which is I think where most of Indonesian publishers are an ads only situation where your only revenue source is pretty much ads. The challenges we've already talked about, but the great thing about the micropayments is that it gives you high yield and it allows you to start monetizing directly from your readers across the globe. And it's one wallet across publishers, right? Now, as you go across to the next stage, many of you may be starting to think about, hey, what about subscription? Should we start thinking of subscription, right? The challenge is, how do you know what content to put behind the paywall? How do you know which audience to target? How much to charge for subscriptions, right? So what micropayments actually does is it actually answers those questions. It figures out what content should be priced at what amount, right? So actually, just as Daily Social used, they started with micropayments, understood what worked, what didn't, and then kind of use that as data to create a subscription business. The third type of publisher are publishers who recently started subscription. And the challenges they face in the beginning is, while there's an initial uptick in subscribers, it quickly stops at a certain amount. So the growth is limited. Plus, they still don't understand what content works and what doesn't. So micropayments, again, can be a complementary way, an incremental revenue source to monetize your non-subscribers, and as well as control which users you want to target. So for example, you can segment your users. So one publisher is doing this. They're saying that if a user has come to my site less than 5 times in the last 30 days, I will show them micropayments. If they've come more than 5 times in the last 30 days, I'll show them subscription, right? Because someone who's come much less is very unlikely to convert as a subscriber. And then the last type of publisher is a subscription veteran. So there's somebody a publisher who's been in the subscription game for a while, and their typical challenges are that growth in terms of subscribers is slowing. They're reaching a saturation point. They may start experiencing user churn. And the way to use micropayments in this situation is really to show micropayments to those users who have churned and as well as other non-subscribers. So these are the 4 types of of publishers that we've come across. I would suspect largely Indonesian publishers fall in 1 and 2, and a lot in the West, for example, in Europe and the US, are more on the right side, somewhere around 3 and 4. And then, a lot of the time people ask questions of, okay, this sounds good. How do we start thinking about micropayments? So what we typically recommend is try and identify about 5 to 10% of your traffic that should go behind this. You should be, if you already have a subscription business, you should target your non-subscribers or churned customers. And maybe you want to look at specific geographies to start with, right? You don't need to start with your number 1 geography. You can start with your number 2. The most important, however, is the type of content that you choose, right? And what we've already learned is that there's certain type of content which no one will pay for. And the main characteristic of that is aging. And by that, I mean, if you publish a piece of content today and it gets all its page views in the first 24 hours, and then after 24 hours, the page views go to 0. That means it's a very breaking news type of story, and probably it's there across multiple other sites. So a user, if they see that type of story, they will likely just try and find the same story in another website. So what you need to target is actually more unique content, niche content that you have, which is evergreen. So if it's published today, there's still demand to read it a week from now, as an example. And again, this is where Daily Social has done really well. And then lastly, as you implement micropayments, you need to keep optimizing the price. What text are you showing the user? How much in Bahasa it is versus English, and then as well as how are you communicating to your users of what micropayments is, because a lot of this is around trust. And lastly, I wasn't trying to sell FewCents too much, but basically, FewCents offers a micropayments solution for the media specifically, and we look at this across 2 lenses. One is from the user side. So we basically are one single login to allow a user to pay per content across multiple publishers in your local currency. And then from a publisher side, you can look at us as a very high yield solution to monetize your non-subscribers. So that's the end of my presentation. Looking forward to the panel.
Thank you, Dushan, for sharing. If I may ask, it's out for my personal curiosity. What actually inspired you to start creating these micropayments and then start? I think the point of your presentation is how to bridge between how to create a user-friendly product, and then as well as to give benefit as well to the publishers.
Yeah.
And then how can you start to be inspired and then start this micropayments item?
So actually, what inspired just creating this company was my co-founder Abhishek. I won't name the publication, but he used to read this publication quite often, and suddenly they decided to start charging $20 a month, and he got annoyed, and then he started thinking, I come to this publication maybe 2 or 3 times in a month. It's not worth me paying $20. There must be a better way, and that's when he started kind of looking at it. And actually, what inspired me to join, because I joined a few months later, was my Google journey. And as I mentioned in the beginning, I've worked with publishers. I know quite well the advertising side and the challenges there, as well as a little bit on the subscription side. So I felt this is a perfect bridge between the two, and it can be a really complementary, incremental source of revenue, right? So I think it's important to understand that micropayments will not cannibalize your current revenue, whether it's on the ad side or whether it's on the subscription side. It can simply just add a whole new revenue stream for you. Sorry, Sylvia, you had the second question, which I've forgotten now. The second part of your question. What was that?
Actually, your answer is already answer everything that I
Okay,
asked.
okay.
So thank you for answering my personal question.
Yeah.
So thank you, Dushan, for sharing. It's very inspiring. Maybe after this, Georgie, would you like to share a bit about yourself and Deal Street Asia, and what is the story behind Deal Street Asia? And we can understand now that Deal Street Asia is one of the biggest media in Southeast Asia, based in Singapore. Maybe you can share one or two a bit about Deal Street Asia and yourself, please. Georgie, you're still in mute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Happy to be part of the panel. Delighted to join. Rama, thank you for the kind words. But we ourselves are we are still very much subscription media. We are like learning things, so we also look to all our peers to sort of learn what's happening. And the interesting thing, I think. Somebody like Rama, he's been running, okay, they came to subscriptions late, but then they're running Daily Social has been a profitable company. So that's like a huge learning for people like us. How do you create a profitable company, which is what not just startups like us, but every startup's been battling with. But broadly on, if I were to look at Deal Street Asia, so we are a niche vertical media. Like I look at media in two ways. One is horizontal media and vertical media. Vertical media is like we stick to certain sectors and we try to do those sectors well, which is for us, it's private equity, venture capital, M&A, and startups that have attracted private investments. That's a space that we look at. I came to Singapore to launch another publication here, but which sort of, to cut the long story short, they ended up being an investor in us. And I felt that in 2015, when we launched, this was a big gap. A big gap was hard news in terms of private equity, venture capital. And that's also because it's a very opaque space, because you're largely dealing with unlisted, almost everybody is like an unlisted company in the space. In 2018, we were free for the first 2.5 years, 3.5 years actually. We built up an audience. In 2018 was when we moved to a subscription model. We always wanted to be a subscription model, but we thought that we wanted to build up an audience first. Our, the panelists, like even like Rama mentioned, our USP has been always trying to stick to journalism that is worth, paying for. We're not really just a content play. And I think we got so far to where we are by focusing on editorial. We hardly made any marketing spends. And we focused on, I thought that there was a gap in terms of news gathering, especially exclusive deal breaks and interviews and big picture coverage of ASEAN. And we sort of focused on that. And I think that for our audience, our audience is actually very small. And I think our original content makes the deal ecosystem more visible. It provides like a competitive edge to our readers. So that's our focus areas. And I look at all our content in two lenses. One is, how do we produce content that is worth paying for, which means it has to have an impact on either the personal lives or the professional lives of our readers. And if we can impact that, they will pay. So it boils down to one thing, that is impact and value. And for us, the response to subscription, I think, has been great. And it's just a validation of our reader support to our journalism. And it's also sort of, that's what, fuels it. That's what makes us get up every day. Like, how do we build a world-class journalism product that is powered by, not by ads, not by traffic, but just by our subscribers? As a company today, we are majority owned by the Nikkei Group, which also owns the Financial Times. India's second largest business, Daily Mint, also has a stake in us. We are Singapore headquartered, reporters across the region. I think we're one of the only publications that have feet on the ground in almost all the markets we cover. So we have reporters in all the countries that we cover, except maybe some frontier markets like Cambodia and all of that. So that's where we are and where we're headed. We, I think, want to look at ourselves as not just a media, but as a platform. How do we become a platform, in the sense, not only do we provide news, but how do we provide data? How do we provide research reports? How do we provide the best? Maybe we do 1 or 2 events in a year, but how do we make that the best networking events? But at the heart of all this platform is content. And when I say content, it comes down to our reporting. That's broadly what we are today. That was a long explanation. I hope it sort of sums up what we've done so far.
Yeah. Very nice explanation. Thank you, Georgie, for sharing the story behind Dealsuit Asia and yourself. Maybe moving on to the panelist discussion. Maybe to Dushan, I would like to hear about what actually we can learn from publishers. From you have said that you have working with publishers from US, from Europe, and from Asia as well, and especially with Daily Social from Indonesia, gitu ya. And how do you differentiate the behavior, the audience behavior, the publisher or behavior between those two different regions? Would you care to share?
Sure. So I think one of the key differences between publishers is, if you remember that one slide on my presentation, which is the different stages of publishers, from ads only to starting to think of reader revenue to starting subscriptions and then being veterans on subscription. Most of the players are thinking in Europe and in the US think more on the are more on the right side, which is they've just started subscriptions or they've been trying subscriptions for a while. So the discussion with them is actually quite different from those that haven't tried subscription at all, because I think there it's much more about how do you make this incremental to subscription, as opposed to the fear is on cannibalizing subscription. Whereas in Asia, especially Southeast Asia, the discussion is much more on 1 and 2, which is ads only. And then the first reaction, which, I think even Rama had, was, I don't know if people in Indonesia will pay for this content. And, you speak to someone in Vietnam, in India, in Malaysia, the first reaction is, yeah, this is Malaysia, people are not going to pay. This is Vietnam, people are not going to pay. Right. So that's the kind of reaction that one gets. I think the other difference is probably, I think, more a language-based difference. So if you're speaking to American or UK publishers, they tend to have quite a big international audience simply because they have English, English content. So they are much more focused on how we can help multiple currencies, multiple users globally. Whereas publishers in countries like Indonesia, while there is maybe around 10% up to 10% of users outside Indonesia, the bulk of users are in Indonesia. So it's much more a domestic conversation, and it's much more about, okay, I need to understand what content should I put behind this, right? So I think those are the key differences. They're just in different parts of that kind of maturity states that I showed.
Thank you, Dushan. Maybe these questions can be leveraged to Georgie and Rama as well. I think this COVID era, a lot of reports, a lot of insights says that in Indonesia, digital penetration got up very high since everyone must working from home, school from home, everything from home, that we solely rely on internet. Maybe Rama, Georgie, and maybe later on Dushan can also add some points as well. That new insight or new behavior affect the engagement from Daily Social and Dealsuit Asia as well? Maybe Rama can start to answer.
Sure. I think menurut aku specifically untuk Indonesia ya, kita tuh satu negara, I think one of the behavior yang kind of define Indonesian consumer itu impulse buying. Artinya kalau memang dia udah kayak memang udah, you don't really need a certain type of things, but it's there and it looks interesting and it's cheap. Jadi mereka it's easier for them to pay. Unfortunately, this is not the case with content. Content requires a lot of investment, terutama di branding ya, karena beda dengan misalnya ada beberapa artikel kita tuh harganya 50.000 for one article. That's very expensive, and it's usually a very data heavy kind of article analysis gitu, yang research report tipenya gitu kan. So it took us a lot of investment to build that one article, took a lot of effort juga dari tim, tapi harganya 50.000 dan kadang-kadang pembaca kita juga mikir kayak wah, 50.000 I can buy something else. Gitu dan for us sebenarnya the reason kenapa kita pembacanya Daily Social itu is more willing karena memang we are in a way we're known already that we've been providing free data anyway. So our branding for the past few years has been we have the data source, we have the kalau ngomongin innovation, ngomongin startup, ya fortunately for us di Indonesia we don't have any major competitor juga kan gitu. So we can basically charge something yang apalagi especially the data in Indonesia when it comes to internet market, internet data. Fortunately, we were the only one that kind of actively research and provide and publish it either for free or for for paying kan. Jadi buat mereka ketika mereka harus bayar, it's justified karena you cannot find this type of content anywhere else. Nah, jadi belakangan ini pun I think juga traffic kita naiknya luar biasa that really help our conversion rate juga jadinya lebih tinggi. So volume di depannya udah besar karena traffic itu juga our traffic is more than double during the pandemic, which meant nothing for us, right? Karena yang bayar kan cuma segitu gitu. So at least sekarang our focus sekarang benar-benar udah gimana caranya to convert those visitors into paying readers.
Thank you Maya, Rama. Jadi kayak emang pengaruh banget ya, maksudnya orang tuh segitu fokusnya sama internet, tapi ya ternyata masih benar ya quote di Indonesia yang emang orang Indonesia mau baca gitu ya. Jadi kayaknya masih agak-agak benar, tapi mungkin udah towards a better pattern kali ya untuk di social gitu. Ya. And then maybe from Dealstreet Asia, would you like to share your insights and maybe the change of behavior during this COVID era?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. So if you look at the COVID, right, one of the things that worked for us is that our subscriptions, it worked. Like COVID was very good in terms of subscriptions for us. I would assume it's because a lot of people are stuck at home, they were working from home, so they had more time on their hands, so they picked up a subscription. So just in terms of subscriptions, in terms of subscription revenue in the year 2020, we grew about 60% compared to 2019. But while we are not an events company, we do one very high-profile, high-end event. So that was virtual that year. So our event is a hugely profitable business, and our revenues from our events were had crashed, but it was more than made up by growth and subscription for us. Another interesting learning from the pandemic was, we need to have more products that are linked to subscription, that complement our news. So we launched our research reports last year. We are adding more products to that. We've started doing deal monitors to compare deal developments in India and China. All of these were separate paid products. We are launching our database in the next 2 or 3 months. And all of these are going to be additional subscription products. So overall, as a company, our revenues grew 30% last year. And it may be lower than what we wanted to be or what our business plans said it could become, because nobody could predict COVID. But overall, I think we have nothing to complain about, because subscriptions took off last year.
Yeah, so I think it's like globally phenomenon that during this COVID era, everyone needs to go, everything needs to do anything from home. So it's only natural that digital penetration just rising very intensively. Maybe Dushan, any other points that you want to share, maybe throughout more in general audience?
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as COVID is concerned, FewSense is a COVID baby. So we weren't around before COVID, so I don't know what it would have been like before. But I think a lot of the trends of COVID have made this the perfect time for us to have started. And I think the main one being just the willingness of users to pay more on digital, right? And then especially in this part of the world, I think because of the wallets that are there, people are much more used to. They're anyway used to be, prepaying for their mobile phones, small amounts. So now they're just translating that into, into paying for content. So I think, I think the willingness to pay is been the most important trend. And then again, on the payment side, if you look back even 2 years ago or 3 years ago, the payments infrastructure that we see today and that we take for granted today was actually not really there, right? So all of that in terms of timing, and then the users, just consuming so much more content online, that all of that coming together speaks very, it's a good thing from a micropayments perspective.
Yes, thank you, Dushan. Jadi mungkin sedikit mensummarikan apa yang sudah di share Joji and Dusan already shared earlier, and also Rama. Mungkin dari sisi karena COVID ini semua orang harus tinggal di rumah, semua orang harus ngapa-ngapain di rumah gitu ya. Semuanya rely on internet and digital gitu ya. Mungkin di sini akhirnya user punya lebih banyak waktu untuk explore what kind of content that they want to consume, and then that is why they are more explorative in terms of searching new content that at the end of the day bakal entertain them gitu, either entertain or giving them new knowledge to moving forward in their life. Okay, moving forward to the next question. It's very interesting because in Indonesia, there are a lot of personality and style where they need to pay for subscription or maybe content monetization. It's unique that Indonesians are very quite cheaty in terms of, I can just use my friend's password and then just share the account, and then how do you guys treat this, and how do you avoid this happening through your platform? Maybe Rama can also share.
Sorry, can you repeat the question? You're breaking up a little bit tadi.
Oke, jadi kan kalau di Indonesia kan banyak orang Indonesia yang agak-agak curang-curangan gitu loh, Ram. Kayak, nih account user passwordnya gue share deh gitu ke teman gue untuk ya udah sama-sama nih kita bayarnya patungan misalnya kayak gitu. As you know, Netflix as well, maybe the best selling subscription model in Netflix is the family, right?
Yeah.
Because within the family member you can just share, and the amount of money that you need to pay also relatively lower kan. And then gimana caranya menyikapi user-user kayak gitu tuh untuk daily social?
So for us sebenarnya kita udah pertimbangkan sih hal-hal kayak gitu. It is and it's embedded into our pricing strategy sebenarnya. I think Netflix juga kurang lebih sama. Actually we learned this from Netflix. Harganya di Indonesia murah dan bisa facilitate banyak user simply because they're gaining market share kan. Jadi hopefully that dalam 2 tahun mereka bisa matiin promonya, and maybe half bakal tetap lanjut the subscription dengan full price, which is very profitable for them. We also do that sebenarnya. Jadi harga kita memang we consider those type of things. Kita ada beberapa pencegahan juga. We took some technical prevention lah. Basically gimana biar orang nggak it's not a shared type of thing. But honestly for us, our focus is just to deliver a good quality content, and our target market is quite premium sebenarnya kan. So I think even if we have ada yang curang-curang kayak gitu, gue rasa juga nggak akan banyak sih. Jadi for us it's still okay.
Yeah, I can take the
Thank
same.
you, Rama. Yeah, Joji maybe.
Yeah, so in terms of specifically issues like do people share passwords and all that, I think that's very common. We also see a lot of firms subscribing to us from generic emails, sales@companyname.com, or marketing at, for example, like marketing at Deal City, which means that several people can use the same email ID to log in and view it. So one of the things that we do, perhaps one of the only things that we can do on the technical side, is maybe restrict the number of simultaneous logins specifically in terms of things like sharing passwords. And in terms of how do we get more people to subscribe to high quality content, and it's not just for us, but even for other media, I think the way we look at it is we don't have a marketing budget. We don't spend on marketing. So I think our marketing is our reporters, right? In the sense that they need to be talking about their stories. They need to be showcasing their work on social media, which would sort of create some buzz around their stories, and people come in and say, okay, this is something that you need to pay for. A bigger, perhaps a bigger marketing engine that for us is our own subscribers. So if they feel that this is content that they value, it is content that benefits them, or like does it benefit them enough that they can recommend their colleagues, their peers, or ask their officers to take a corporate subscription? That is one way of looking at it. And another way that we can perhaps look at it is our existing subscribers are itself like a huge goldmine information. Like, are we talking to them enough to understand what is it that they want? And the more we figure out what they want, and if we can tailor make, provide some of those solutions that they want, then not only will they be happy, but they will also renew subscription. That the renewal and the churn is another big thing. It's easy to get a subscriber, but retaining a subscriber for years and making her or him come back every year and renew, that's something that's a huge challenge. One more way we can address it through that life cycle. If you're an annual subscriber, how do we add enough value? Like, you pay for, and we are expensive. We are $299. It's a flat fee across all markets. And that's for news. For some of other products, we are at $1,999 a year. So like I said, we are expensive, but how do we add enough value so that they feel that they've derived far more value for whatever they pay, whether it's $299 or $1,099 throughout the course of the year, that they can come back over and over again. And an annual subscription gives us the time to demonstrate that value. We give you like breaking news, we give you data, we give you research. So it just gives us the time to prove that maybe there is enough in it for them to come back and not just like pick up a subscription and move on. That's how we look at it.
Yes, thank you, Jonji, for sharing. Dushan, maybe?
Yeah. So the way we look at it is, I mean, there will always be players who try to game the system and get stuff for free, right? They'll take a screenshot, send it on WhatsApp to their friends, right? So that's always a risk. But I think in the micro payment space, right, the user behavior changes a lot once you go below a certain price point. So if, for example, in Indonesia, articles are priced anywhere from 1,500 rupiah to 3,000 to 7,000. Now, if something is priced at 1,500 rupiah, the user is not going to take too much time to, share their password, username, password, and all. There's too much effort for such a small amount of money. So I think in the micro payment space, that kind of trying to get around the system is actually much less, because the amount is so small that it's not worth the time of the user to do all of that stuff.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Completely agree. Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Dushan. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. Let's move on to the QA sessions. We have received a lot of interesting questions. Most of them are relating to pricing. So be ready to answer. First of all, from Alvin. Hi, Alvin, to Rama. So he is the first one who asked questions in this session. Hai Mas Rama, thank you for the insight. Untuk pricing berlangganan, penentunya dari mana ya? Apakah setiap persona harus diakomodir? Terus gimana cara retention pelanggan berbayar yang sudah subscribe untuk terus berlangganan lagi? Thank you, Mas Rama, silakan.
Alright, ini ada beberapa pertanyaan yang kurang lebih sama sih, gimana caranya menentukan pricing. Dulu this is something yang we struggle juga nih, menurut pricingnya gimana. Dan waktu itu kita combine ada dua modeling sih. Yang pertama yang kita sebut namanya cost plus pricing. Jadi cost plus itu kita hitung untuk the cost of producing satu artikel itu berapa, ditambah dengan margin kita mau berapa persen, nah itu pricingnya kurang lebih kayak gitu. But unfortunately ini nggak bisa dipakai sendirian. Ini hanya bisa dipakai kecuali kita benar-benar nggak ada kompetitor sama sekali. The number, misalnya kontennya itu cuma ada di kita exclusively, ada di platform kita bisa implement kayak gini, dan kita memang yakin orang-orang yang butuh konten-konten kayak gini itu memang orang-orang yang mampu bayar. So cost plus pricing model it makes sense kalau mau modelnya kayak gini. Selain dari cost plus pricing itu, kita juga pakai namanya value base. Value base ini kita pakai modeling banyak sekali A/B testing ke pengguna gitu. So we did a lot of A/B test with user in the early days of the integration. Orang kalau kita pakai artikel yang harga 5.000 berapa yang mau bayar? Kalau kita pakai artikel harga 10.000 berapa? 15.000 berapa? 50.000 berapa? And from that we run a modeling system dan kita bisa nemu the ideal deltanya angka modeling yang paling pas itu yang paling default berapa, dan statistiknya orang akan prefer angka segitu, udah kita stick with that number dan pricingnya kurang lebih seperti itu. Nah, itu kita pakai juga. Cuman ada beberapa metode lagi sih sebenarnya yang mungkin bisa di googling habis ini. Cuman aku pengen sharing juga, mungkin karena teman-teman ini mungkin banyak juga ya yang kontennya nggak necessarily eksklusif gitu ya, terutama ya. Ada namanya share driven artinya lihat kompetitor pasang harganya berapa, atau kompetitor yang di luar negeri misalnya, media company yang di luar negeri pasang harganya berapa, dan kita adjust dari situ. Kalau memang kita misalnya New York Times dengan model yang kurang lebih sama, they charge $10, which is mungkin sekitar 140.000. Berarti kita maybe dengan kualitas yang sama, maybe kita bisa charge maybe 100.000 atau slightly lower than that gitu. Jadi bisa digunakan, you can combine all three modeling untuk menentukan pricing. Tapi kalau untuk daily social, kita basically combine yang dua tadi sih. Semoga menjawab buat teman-teman.
Thank you Rama udah ngejawab. I'm here from a question from Bimanto to Dushan. Talking about the popular topics that can draw subscribers, food, travel, gadgets, etc. Does it mean that those dealing with other topics or subjects stand very little chance of getting into micropayment mode? Maybe just the way to approach, I think, must be different from the most selling topics. Maybe Dushan.
Yeah, so I mean, I already responded in text, but the summary of the answer is that any kind of genre can be, that I didn't mention, can also be monetized through micropayments. You just need to ensure that content is high quality, it's a little unique to your site, and as long as it is that, then it's good for micropayments. If it's news that's available on 20 other websites, then that's probably not good for micropayments.
Thank you, Dushan. Just saw that you just replied the question. So moving forward from Aryo Tamat to all panelists, how would micropayments, not subscription, change the business decisions behind what kind of content to display? For instance, ad-driven business has made content optimized for high views and clicks to be prioritized over others. Maybe Georgie, do you care to answer first?
Okay, so this is tough for me to take because we don't do micropayments. So micropayments don't impact the way our content is how we produce a content. But if you can give me 2 minutes, I can just tell you how we, and it doesn't apply to other media, but why we don't do micropayments, or why we have no plans to do it. We personally believe it works very differently. Micropayments can work very well for horizontal media, right? For example, if I want to know, I won't be subscribing to 10 different publications to know what's happening in my town or in my neighborhood, or for example, I won't be subscribing to 10 different publications to learn on cooking or whatever. But I think we personally believe it's very difficult or different for vertical media. People like us who just cover 1 or 2 sectors, and people like us who are also priced very differently. We price very high. Like I said, our minimum price is, let's say, $2.99, and even for a trial, we charge right now we charge about $49 US, and it's $2.99 USD. So if you want to experience a product, you can pick up a trial, which may be equivalent to what like in some form what a micro payment is. For us, I think the numbers don't add up. There's a lot of arguments saying, okay, if people are willing to pay a few cents, so if, for example, if we take the example of 30 cents for a story, it takes 1,000 readers before we get for us, for somebody like us, which is equivalent to one publication. But not just the numbers, the math is very different for different publications. The math works very differently for us because, like I said, we consider ourselves as niche vertical media. And the second, the problem that Dushyant answered it, but I still think there is some level of friction in the sense that even if you're a micropayment, when we look at it, when we look at micropayments, it doesn't work across all media. Then if you're a subscriber, you still need a wallet. You need to put money into your wallet. And if you do that, can you read across all media? No, I don't know when, unless we have a system where, through micropayments, you can access all the media that you need. So that's another challenge that when we look at it, that we face. And for us, primarily the most important thing that we look at, we are optimizing for loyalty because we cater to a very specific audience and not really audience who want to read it occasionally, like not the one hit types, like, who can come and like maybe read a story once a month and then run away. But we want to try and build that. How do we build a relationship? How do we build some level of loyalty that we can serve you over a longer period? And Rama also mentioned about the cost of content. The thing I see about micropayments is, we're not optimized, you're optimized to read that great story. But for us, it's not like, if you're just optimized to sell that one great story, that's not how we are a package deal. So across the year, we can give you like several great stories, several analytical news, like several breaking news on a daily basis. So we are trying to sell a packaged package deal. So that's how we look at the whole the space. So I think for some media who are trying to cater to sell really expensive subscriptions, maybe micropayments is not the answer. Again, this is no reference to the whole micropayments as a whole, but just saying that it's different for somebody like us.
If I can add, boleh ya? I think it's a very good question sih dari Aryo, karena I think selama ini kan dari sisi editorial, terutama buat media company yang general content gitu ya, memang agak kesulitan mengkaitkan dengan konten apa yang memang yang berbayar. Biasanya konten-konten yang kayaknya nggak jauh-jauh dari porno, trafficnya langsung melonjak tinggi gitu kan. Nah, this is not necessarily the case ketika kita masuk ke sini, karena people are not willing to pay for that. Jadi buat apa kita ngeluarin effort untuk memproduksi konten-konten kayak gitu. So di kita memang dengan adanya everything is data driven dan orang nggak cuma baca tapi orang bayar, kan level of commitmentnya beda gitu ya. Whether people are just reading or they're actually paying for stuff, artinya memang orang benar-benar value that one particular content. Memang, oh, this is good content because I'm paying for it. So this is very beneficial juga buat kita, because we know what type of content kan, apa yang orang bayar, what kind of content that people are actually paying for. Di dashboard juga kelihatan, because we're using FuseSense, you can see what type of content people are paying for and which category, atau tentang company apa, atau tentang topik apa, semuanya kelihatan. Jadi buat kita juga ya biasa-biasa ketika ada misalnya berita mengenai yang memang relate kayak gitu, yang kita tahu, oh, people will be paying for this stuff, we put more effort into it. Benar-benar kita nggak perlu like breaking news yang mesti publish as soon as possible, before everyone else. For us, that's no longer relevant. As long as we can go deep, add more data, more analysis, segala macam, people are more willing to pay for it. Jadi effort kita pun it's already paid off. Gitu sih, semoga menjawab buat Aryo. Thank you.
Okay, thank you Maya and Joji, Rama and Joji. Maybe Dushyant, do you care to add one or two things about this question?
Yeah, I mean, I think Joji makes a good point, right? Especially if you have such a high amount for your subscription, it may not make sense for micropayments. But when you come down to the typical kind of subscription package, right, which is $5 a month, $10 a month, you have to still remember at the end of the day, less than 3% of your user base ends up subscribing. So that 3% who's paying $5 or $10 a month is not enough for a publication to kind of grow and earn good revenue. So you have to monetize your 97% in some way. Of course, ads forms the base, but on top of that, I think that's where micropayments sweet spot is. where you have a lot of content. Your subscription is $5 to $10, but 97% of the users are not subscribing, right? So I think it depends on the use case. And then lastly, I would say, yes, content. So content niches are also well suited for micropayments. Again, it depends. If it's really high value content, which is worth $300 or so, then maybe not. But if you're talking about automotive magazines, for example, or anything, and someone wants to read a review about a car they're thinking of buying, they'll be willing to pay 5,000 rupiah for that kind of content.
Yeah, I think it's back to depending on what kind of media, what kind of content, what kind of audience that we are actually servicing. And then from there, we can understand and we can create our own format on what kind of content monetization that actually able to serve the best to the audience as well. Yep. Any other points? Maybe I just heard someone. No?
No, I just want to ask Dushyant, the friction of how do you still, from your experience, right? Like, let's say that if you want to read all the local newspapers in a particular country or something, like, how do you, unless you get onto that scale, like that is one. How do you hit that phase? Like, what's your experience been? That's one. And two, the friction of a wallet, right? I still have to log into your few cents. I need to put money into the wallet. I put money into the wallet and see, I'm just theoretical example. I put money into the wallet and I see that I can read New York Times, but I can't read Washington Post.
Yeah.
No, and then I'm like back to square one. And then I need to jump onto some other somebody else to see if I can read Washington. How do you solve that from where you're sitting? How do you look at it?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question, right? So early on, we're early in our evolution as a company, and our aim is to get to that almost like a flywheel, right? Where we have enough content that it makes sense for a user to use their money across publishers, right? So one way to look at it is look at different content genres, right? So I mentioned automobiles, it could be food, it could be whatever. Imagine that we have the top 10 or top 20 websites in these genres. Then it makes sense for a user. So while having said that, and that is somewhere we need to get to really make this really fast, high transaction volume. What was pleasantly surprising for us, and Daily Social was our first publisher, right? That we signed on, and even there were enough users who were willing to come, and because they were relatively frequent users of Daily Social itself. In terms of friction, I agree. Again, yet another wallet can be a piece of can be high friction, but what we've done around that is really make it super easy to fill up that wallet. So for example, I think our minimum amount to top up is about equivalent of 3 Singapore dollars. And then you can use all your local payment methods. So it's super easy. You don't have to pull out your credit card or anything. So we reduce the friction there. But yes, I would say the midterm target definitely is to get a critical mass of publishers on board so that it makes sense for users to consume regularly. And then it helps the original publishers as well, right? Because more users would sign on through other publishers and then start consuming the original publisher's content as well.
Yeah, thank you everyone for answering. Mungkin sedikit intermezzo, mau bantu tim Ida untuk ingetin untuk teman-teman yang join, thank you banget. Jangan lupa untuk isi survei form supaya nanti ke depannya kita bisa pelajarin apa yang bisa kita improve ya. Linknya ada di comment box, silakan dicek. Kemudian the next question to Dushyant, when you say publisher need wallet to let pay per article, means the subscriber deposit a certain amount of money, and the deposit will reduce as paid articles they read. Maybe you can try to answer.
Yeah, that's right. So it is a prepaid wallet at the moment that we have. So either, the models can be two, right? One is that you prepay, so you put in a certain amount, which I was just answering in my last answer. And the other model that's available is you pay later, right? Either way, you need to batch the transactions together so that you're putting through let's say $3 or $5 or 30,000, 50,000 rupiah worth of currency in one transaction, so that the fixed fee is not a problem, right? So I think the key in micropayments is you need to batch your transactions. Even on Google Play, when you go to the Play Store or the iOS, the Apple Store, you will notice that you get charged once a month actually, because they also batch the transactions together.
Right. Thank you, Rushan, for the answer. Moving forward, we almost the end of the session, since it's already almost 5:30. I would like to hear from the all panelists here. How do you see content monetization 2 to 3 years from now? Maybe Rama, on behalf of Indonesia, can you answer the trend that you are predicting now?
Sure ya, karena aku di IDA juga, terekspos sama beberapa leadership di digital media di Indonesia. Memang ini salah satu alternatif yang memang lagi dieksplor oleh most of the media companies di Indonesia, digital media companies ya, yang selama ini is very dependent sama advertising. They are looking, looking forward keluar dari dominasi. The two giants yang shall not be named, itu ya, very very large companies, and this is one of the alternative kind on how you can monetize content, and I think from a business perspective is very good because it makes them more sustainable, long lasting juga, and actually become more scalable juga as a business. Tapi it's really because I honestly personally believe it makes the world a better place, because now people actually consume content that is actually valuable, and giving incentive to companies, media companies, untuk produksi artikel yang memang juga very valuable, bertanggung jawab, responsible, and positive kind of content yang bikin orang tambah pintar gitu, which is unfortunately not the case sekarang gitu loh. So I'm very looking forward for more digital media companies to monetize their content in the near future. Say, very excited.
Thank you, Rama. Georgie, any 2 cents from you?
Yeah, so I think it's going to be very, very different in the next 2 to 3 years from what we have now. And I'm looking at primarily in the space that we are in. The disruption for us is going to come from things that we never even thought, like it's not going to be more digital media, but the disruption for super niche vertical media is going to come from things like new platforms that are not even around today. So just look at the last 6 months to 1 year. Let's take something like Clubhouse. Right now, it's only on iOS, so you need to be an Apple subscriber. I think they're launching something on Android. But now, what are the advantage that media like us or the big, for example, even the New York Times or any of the big media had? We had access to a certain level of people. We were the gatekeepers. We were the storytellers or whatever. Now, somebody like Clubhouse, right? It allows everybody from Elon Musk and everybody to talk directly to our reader. So why should anybody be paying for us? That's the look at something like a Substack. Like a lot of journalists are leaving top-end publications. They are going directly to their readers, and they're tapping into the same audience that is willing to pay. So we see content monetization being very different. There are going to be a lot of citizen journalists. It's going to be democratizing the news scene a lot more, because look at platforms like Reddit. Are people reading financial advice on equity related news on platforms like the Wall Street Journal? Just look at what happened last 2 weeks in terms of how Reddit users brought hedge fund people to their knees. So I think there are going to be a lot more channels that are going to go directly to the readers and listeners, and that's going to change the role of media like us forever. So we need to be evolving to counter that. And the best way of looking at it is like, will we all be in a position to produce journalism, produce content, or deeply research, analyze content that has an impact? So that's how. And if we can't, then I don't see a future for people like us. And these are new platforms. Like, they didn't even exist 6 months ago. And look at the coverage of look at how established media has been covering Substack. They're all very concerned about platforms like this. A group of two, group of three people can enter the space and completely disrupt high-end media.
Right. Thank you, Joji. Dushan?
Yeah, I totally agree on that part with Joji in terms of the creator economy and platforms that that will service this. But what would be interesting to see, and I don't have the answer, is that even players like Substack, right, today offer subscription, which are not necessarily working out for these individual creators. So we're hoping that's another channel for micropayments to work well. So 2-3 years down the line, I definitely think there will be multiple revenue models that, again, we may not be seeing today. You're starting to see the rise of a lot of affiliate marketing. So a lot of content companies are making pretty decent amount of revenue through affiliate marketing. Of course, paid content has been around for a while. I know it's quite big in Indonesia as well. But I think we'll see more and more alternate forms of revenue. On the user side, I think the frustration will continue to grow in the sense that there'll be so many different sources of content. How do you make sense of it? So again, these platforms would become super useful to kind of either aggregate content or at least help them find this content and then monetize this as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I certainly think micropayments is something whose time has come. So I think micropayments will also be a pretty big player in the future.
Can I add one point to what Dushan said?
Sure.
Just a question, it's a just want to can anybody guess what's the fastest growing media company in terms of revenues? And I'm sure it's something that most of us have not really thought about. And I just thought about it when Dushyant was saying it's a media platform called OnlyFans. Go take a look at it. Look at the content. And these are stuff that and just look at what are the content that people are paying for. They cracked, I think, something like $300 million in revenue last year. And this is something like who talks about media as we know it is completely changing. People, and it's related to micropayments too. If you look at only payments, people are paying small amounts for interesting activities happening there.
The content category is quite different.
So at the end of the day, they're media too. So media, as we know, is complete, and that's content monetization. It's like, who knew that anybody sitting anywhere in the world could monetize on OnlyFans? And that's also micropayments, right? You're paying like every time you open OnlyFans, you're paying what, $2, $1, like whatever. So the whole media, as we know it, is completely the platform approach. Like, what if Twitter goes to a subscription model tomorrow? And they're talking about it. It's been in the news last 2 days. What if Reddit has some other interesting subscription option? So I think media, as we know, is completely going to change.
Right. Thank you for answering all the questions. Thank you for joining the session as well. It's been very fun. It's been very a nice discussion. To summarize everything, I think it's back to it's depending on what kind of user that we are serving, what kind of content that we are actually creating to serve our audiences, and then on which stage that our audience is actually already standing currently. Like for Indonesian, maybe like Dushan already shared that maybe we are still on step 1 and 2, whilst the more developed countries already in stage 3 and 4. I think those kind of steps also need different kind of approach. Different content needs different kind of approach, and then different segment also need different kind of approach. So I think that's the summary of our discussion. And on top of that, in Indonesia, as we know, we are facing a very high incremental in terms of digital penetration, and I think it's very interesting to see how Indonesians can evolve together with the platforms, and then finally we can serve to each other, and then the media platform can also create some content that's actually relevant with the audience as well. So I think That's all today. Just a little credit to Dushan, maybe that your sharing is very interesting. That's why a lot of people asking for your context. So I think if you want to share your context, you can type it in the chat box. Feel free.
Yeah, sure.
And then, yeah, just share it. And then I think that's all from me. Thank you everyone for joining. We have a lot of participants today. It's very interactive as well. A lot of people asking questions, and the questions are very great. Thank you, Dushan, Jody, and Rama for joining the discussion. We are excited to see another discussion that Ida going to help after this. So thank you, everyone. Have a nice evening. Have a good rest and stay healthy, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We should try this on Clubhouse next.
Yeah, another session.
Not only fans, Gigi. Thanks, everyone.
Rama, I just looked up. Their profit was 300 million last year.
Whoa.
Profit, not
That's
revenue.
crazy. Yeah, that's crazy.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good rest.